Now, for more on what a possible U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement would mean, I'm joined by Rachel Cleetus, the lead economist and climate policy manager for the Climate and Energy Program at the Union of Concerned Scientists. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
Now, as we know, there's been no official word from Trump on the Paris Accord, but he did fall short of standing in solidarity with the G7 nations on this last week. What could the potential fallout be economically and environmentally if the U.S. pulls out?
As you say, a decision has not been revealed yet, and one hopes that better sense will prevail and that the responsible decision to stay in the Paris Agreement will happen. But meanwhile, the Trump administration is clearly isolated on the world stage in its recalcitrance to stick with the agreement and its commitment. And one of the very vocal voices that has been calling them out is the business community in the United States and around the world. U.S. businesses want a seat at the table as this low-carbon future is being fashioned. They understand the tremendous economic opportunities that this future could bring for U.S. companies, everything from clean energy companies, cutting-edge innovation. So whether you're talking about Tesla, Google, Apple, all of these huge American companies are asking the president to please stay in the Paris Agreement. They understand the economic opportunities. They also understand that climate change poses risks to businesses. Disruptions due to extreme weather, for example, it can affect supply chains of global businesses. So they want to participate in this global effort to help limit the impacts of climate change.
Now, Rachel, in terms of the obligations with this deal, what has the U.S. already committed to at this point?
So the Paris Agreement is a voluntary commitment agreement. So the U.S. has made a voluntary commitment to reduce its emissions 26 to 28% below 2005 levels by 2025. This is voluntary, and guess what? We're 40%, more than 40% of the way already to meeting this commitment. And that's because of the tremendous shift towards clean energy we're already experiencing in our economy. Renewables costs are falling. We've seen cheap natural gas be part of the equation. So we're seeing a pretty historic shift away from fossil fuels to cleaner forms of energy, for example, to generate electricity. And that's bringing down our emissions even as our economy is thriving. There's no reason to be scared of this future. This low carbon future will bring jobs, it'll bring economic opportunities, it'll cut pollution and bring public health benefits. We should be embracing this low carbon future.
Now, with the U.S., though, being one of the world's top emissions producers in the world, how much could the U.S. pulling out of the deal affect the goals of the accord?
Well, the reality is, as I said, the Trump administration is absolutely isolated. We have seen country after country come out to reaffirm their commitment, whether it's China, the EU nations, India, Canada, all of the rest of the G7 countries except the U.S. So there's a huge momentum in the world towards sticking with the agreement and the commitments, and countries are racing to capture a part of this clean energy economy of the future. Now, the Trump administration, of course, has not yet revealed their decision, but I should say that there is a longer-term future here that we need to be thinking about. Beyond the next 4 years, what else is coming? And businesses in the U.S. clearly are looking to that long-term future. So we're going to continue to see clean energy progress and momentum despite what the Trump administration is doing. We're hearing from cities and states as well in the U.S. that they're committed and they're going to continue to drive down emissions and ramp up clean energy. So all of this momentum is going to continue to drive clean energy progress. What's missing, and it's a big deal, is leadership from the top, from the Trump administration and from Congress on one of the most pressing challenges of our time, climate change.
Now, as we know, this was obviously a commitment that was brought on by the previous administration, not the Trump administration. And we know that China and the EU, as you mentioned, have now recently reaffirmed their commitments to the Paris Agreement, regardless of what the US does. How significant is this in terms of the leadership role that we're seeing in climate change?
Well, it's unprecedented. We've gone from a can-do country that displays global leadership to a country that seems to be can't do. How is this possible? The U.S. has always been at the cutting edge of clean energy and new technology revolutions. So it's a very sad and unfortunate moment. It would be a grave mistake for the Trump administration to step away from the Paris Agreement.
Now, on the one hand, we know that Trump says he wants to put America first, bring back the coal industry, he even called the Paris Accord a job killer. But as you mentioned, you have businesses, including some of the world's biggest energy companies like ExxonMobil, urging Trump not to walk away from the Paris deal. Why this disconnect on jobs?
Well, the reality is, if you look at the numbers, you can see that the clean energy economy is providing many more jobs than the fossil fuel industry. Those jobs are growing much faster as well. Now, to be sure, we absolutely have to make sure that this transition away from fossil fuels doesn't disproportionately hurt workers, that we do have policies that help with a just transition for these workers that have been affected. But there is no doubt about which way the future is oriented, and it's oriented towards low carbon resources. The Trump administration should just look at the market realities and embrace this future, as any businessman would. Any smart businessman would look at the facts and the data, and the responsible and smart decision here is to go where the market is going and embrace this clean energy future.
Well, we'll have to see if he leans more on his business sense or rallies more towards his base. Thank you so much, Rachel Cleetus from the Union of Concerned Scientists.